It was not that long ago that I discussed my attempt at an iPad-only desk setup and how surprisingly successful that can be for certain use cases. And if you missed that video, I'll link it down below in the description for you guys to check out. But for today, I wanted to revisit this idea of just only using an iPad, as the iPadOS 17 developer beta has been available for me to test out for the last few weeks, and now the public beta is available for a lot of you guys to download. And there's stuff on there that make the iPad more useful as a standalone mobile device, as well as features that further pave the way for people wanting to only use an iPad at their desk. Let's start with the general improvements first that help improve on making iPads more useful as your portable computer. One of the biggest changes to iPadOS 17 is the lock screen. We're finally getting customizable lock screens that are similar to the ones we got on the iPhone. You get an array of options to make it look exactly the way that you want it to, which includes adding widgets. We're able to add information to our screen that's most useful to us at a glance, which can include the time, weather, news, battery percentages. We're also able to see live activities now from the lock screen to show us things that are happening in real time, which includes things like timers or even our flight schedule. My only critique with adding live activities is that it was useful on iPhones because of the always on display. I'd always be able to know what's going on in real time with my Uber Eats order without actually having to touch my phone. iPads don't have this type of display technology yet, so I'd always need to tap the iPad screen to see what live activities are in the background, but maybe in future iPad iterations, this will change. Once we unlock our iPads and get to the home screen, we're actually now able to also add interactive widgets that allow us to do actions within the widget without having to go directly into the app. The best example of this is with the Home app widget, where I'm able to turn off and on lights from the widget itself without having to physically open up the app. This is a really cool quality of life improvement to be able to control my lights with a quick tap without having to use my voice or leave my desk, for example. The next great thing about iPadOS 17 is PDFs. Apple has made it much easier to fill out PDFs and documents we scan with this new feature called autofill. It'll automatically do its best to identify where on a page things need to be filled out, and it'll add text lines for us to add in that information. You can also add these PDFs into notes and annotate them directly within that app. It is super cool to see Apple doing this, especially if you've tried to do this before. You'd know you'd have to pay for features like this from dedicated PDF apps on the App Store in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how those apps respond, if they can at all, as it does seem Apple did do a dent to consumers justifying buying any sort of PDF app now for their iPad. I'd never take advantage of this as I'm outside of school now, but if you are a student, you can collaborate on PDFs in real time with other people by just sharing them in notes. You can write on them, draw diagrams, add stickers, and all of these changes are happening live in real time while, let's say, you're on a FaceTime call with another person. Again, I haven't personally tested this out yet because I'm not a student, but Apple is usually good at keeping their promises, so a feature like this really does further advance using an iPad as your only computer if you are a student. Before we keep talking about other iPadOS 17 features, I want to share with you a few products from today's sponsor, EIP, that I think really level up your iPad experience, especially for anybody that's on a tight budget. I tested out their Paper Feel screen protector that literally feels like pencil on paper, and it's also magnetic, so it's super easy to attach and detach from the iPad. There's virtually no installation required. I've actually never used something like this before. I didn't even know screen protectors like these existed. So it's extremely useful to just pop this on when I'm making stuff in Procreate. And then once I'm done using Procreate, I can take it off once I'm finished, and then I can go back to using my iPad display as is. If you do want to keep the screen protector on, it does have anti-glare built in, so it does allow you to help block out any blue light that's emitting from the iPad. They also have their EIP Pencil Pro, which is essentially a much cheaper version of the Apple Pencil 2 with very little compromise. It has wireless charging and connects directly to the iPad. It has palm rejection, it's very precise, and it's also tilt sensitive, so you are able to create different strokes with this pencil. You can also add this thing called a nibs cover to the end of your pencil that they sell. They come in 8 different colors, and it helps create more friction to enhance the writing experience on the iPad, but it also helps protect the tip of your pencil from wear and tear. And for people who can't afford Apple's Magic Keyboard for their iPad, EIP has a very affordable alternative Bluetooth keyboard that magnetically attaches and floats your iPad with adjustable angles, has 500 hours of battery life on a single charge. It's quite thin and light as well, and it has a backlight that is adjustable to 7 colors and 3 brightness settings. So all of EIP's products mentioned in this video will be available at the top of the description down below, as well as in the comment section. And they have a sale going on right now for back to school for up to 25% off on their website directly. So be sure to click that link to take advantage of their sale today. Thank you so much, EIP, for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so now I want to talk about iPadOS 17 features that I feel really push and further pave the way for people to use this as their only computer at a desk. It has to do with changes to Safari, Stage Manager, and third-party webcam support. Starting with the latter, finally, we can use third-party webcams instead of being confined to the one on iPad. The reason this matters is not so much because the iPad webcams sucked, that actually couldn't be further from the truth. Those were quite decent as it is. It's mostly about the positioning of the iPad webcam. Like I'm centered to the iPad right now, and the webcam is off to the side. So you always have this really weird sort of like composition for your face. On top of the fact that if you have the webcam just sitting on a desk like I do here, it's always sort of like looking up at you, like almost into your nostrils. Like the only way that you can actually get this to look good, have it kind of like on a stand and then always looking at the lens here instead of in the center, or else you kind of look like everything just looks off. So as you can see from here, I can use my webcam built into the studio display that gives me a better view of me on a call. Your monitor doesn't have to have a webcam for this to work. All webcams will work as long as the signal is being fed into the USB-C port. Okay, now let's talk about a minor change that makes a huge difference, and that has to do with Stage Manager. The biggest complaint people had with Stage Manager was that it felt too restrictive. It felt like iPadOS was not letting you resize and organize your windows in a way that was natural. I personally didn't particularly agree with this take, and I talked about this in my last iPad-only desk setup video, but a lot of people felt that way. So now in this new update, you get more flexibility to move, resize, and place windows more freely in iPadOS 17. It's really hard to describe and show this in video, but I do notice a pretty significant difference. You get to place windows into almost any part of your screen without much limitations. Also, fun fact, you can now shift-click any app on the dock and it'll automatically now add into your iPad view. That was impossible before on iPadOS 16. Before, the only way you could do this was dragging and dropping the app on the screen. And honestly, while that did work, it did feel a little clunky at times, so I wasn't a big fan of that. Now let's talk about Safari. This will easily be one of, if not the most used app for anyone looking to use an iPad as their only computer at a desk. Apple made some really cool changes here, which include the ability to create profiles to keep your browsing topics separate. For example, I have a personal and a work Safari profile, which saves a separate history, extension, tab groups, favorites, and a bunch of other data. So once I'm done working for the day on my iPad under the work Safari profile, I can very quickly switch in browser from work to the personal profile and immediately be able to dive back into stuff that I might just find interesting that's completely unrelated to work. We're also getting relevant search results on a dime now. So Apple really did improve the search engine that's sort of built in to the Safari web browser. So if I type, let's say, MBA finals score, it'll immediately show at the top what that final score was without me needing to do the final Google search to get that information. And for anyone who likes to leverage private browsing, your iPad is now more secure as a desktop computer if you're going to be browsing the web. Private browsing windows are now locked behind Touch ID, Face ID, or passcodes depending on the kind of iPad you have. And it also works to block trackers and other data grabs to keep your browsing experience more safe. So that's the stuff that I felt made the iPad more useful as a standalone mobile computer, as well as a computer that can be leveraged as the only one you use at your desk. There is a ton more iPadOS 17 features that I didn't even talk about in this video, but I will link the full iPadOS 17 preview down below for anybody that's interested in just wanting to learn more about what's to come for their iPad. Okay, a big question that I want to spawn into this video is whether or not I think iPads are perfect now as an official MacBook replacement with this latest iteration of iPadOS 17. In my opinion, I don't think so, not yet. And the more that time goes on, I actually don't think that reality might ever come. I think iPads will always be in their own bubble, and they will be made for people who want a different kind of computing experience. All this talk and hope that iPads will eventually overthrow MacBooks don't make much sense to me anymore. Like, if you need a Mac, go buy a MacBook because Apple is really innovating there and creating really powerful laptops and desktops that can get really heavy work done. And Apple is already on this new journey of trying to define a new computing category known as spatial computing with their Vision Pro coming out in 2024. So when I think about where iPads fit into all of this, I think it's just going to be that like second middle child, a different kind of computer that will never exactly replace a MacBook. Just like how Vision Pro is a new kind of computer that will stand on its own with different use cases that appeal to different kinds of people that might not necessarily replace a MacBook for other people. Like, we just have all of these computing options now, from iPads to MacBooks to this eventual Vision Pro, and to some people, your iPhone might be the computer you use the most. Like, I know a ton of people that don't even really use laptops, they just use their phone, and that in itself is a type of computer. Anyways, I've been rambling for a long time about that. I could be just blabbering about that forever, but so I'll kind of put a stop to that. That's my take on iPad only setups and people wanting to use this as their only computer. You 100% can. It just comes down to what you're trying to do on your computer and if the iPad is suitable for that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Comment hashtag I made it if you finished the video. You are goated for making it to the very end. I will heart all comments that comment that hashtag and watch my latest video right here. And I'll talk to all of you guys in the next one. Peace.